Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast, the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield. I am the executive editor of Sox Prospects, and I am joined, as always, by a creepy hologram of our director of scouting, Ian Cundall, who, at the 7-inning stretch of this podcast, is going to sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
No, first off, that's not going to happen. Second off, I thought there was like a rule that no one would talk about that after seeing it, because that was one of the weirdest things I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it was.
And for those who don't know, what we're talking about is during the Field of Dreams game today, they put up like a hologram of Harry Carey and had him sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." And it was interesting. It was not what I was expecting.
It was an interesting idea. They hyped it, which was weird. Like, to me, that's something you did. To me, like the Griffey's thing was cooler than that. Like the Griffey's coming out to play catch, that was much cooler. But at any rate, well, we've got a lot to talk about this episode. We are this is episode 259, I think. Anyway, our last episode was the trade deadline episode, so this is just going to be about rankings. It's going to be about some transactions in the system since our last episode. Primarily some cuts, frankly, and we've had a lot of the draftees who've signed making debuts, but we'll talk about why the two things are together, why releases tend to flow with the draftees coming into the system. And of course, we have your emails. So if you want to send us an email, you can email us at podcast@soxprospects.com. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. Send in your email and we might read it on the show. Of course, if you want to support the show, you can do that on patreon.com/soxprospects. Pledge a certain amount per episode and get some neat perks. I am behind. This weekend, I'm going to upload the newest rankings perks for our Patreon listeners, our Patreon supporters. They get everyone's, depending on what level you're at, a certain level you get everyone's top 30s, and you get to see what prospects were number 61 to 70 in our rankings and after our voting. So yeah, you'll want to check that out again. Patreon.com/Sox Prospects. And of course, if you rate and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever it is that you listen to the show, that'll be a huge help get the word out. Tell your creepy hologram friend about the show. Once they cease existing, they can go back into the airwaves or the electro waves and listen to the show that way, I guess. So tell your friends there. Ian, let's, I guess, start with the news as always. And the news has kind of been a couple things. First off, I mean, I guess one thing that's nice, I'll just mention it briefly, is that Nick York is finally starting to hit again. He's had his first good week of the season this week, so that's good to see. And this is why you don't give up on a guy after a tough start to the season. That also includes injuries. You know, you stay with him. I'm confident Nick York will turn it around, and he's starting to. So
I agree. Yeah, that was
nice to see.
He's still the top, one of the top few guys in the system. And yeah. And as you said, it's he just needs to stay on the field and be healthy, because I just wonder how much of his performance this year has been driven by, nagging injuries that have kind of set him back a little bit.
Yes and no. I mean, because part of the thing is that he just, like, the metrics weren't good either, right? Like he was hitting every
right. No. What I'm saying though, right. What I'm saying though is I wonder if he was being plagued by injuries during that time. Yeah,
I mean, it was before he got hurt. We heard that the injuries weren't chronic, but again, well, who knows, right? I mean, it's all speculation, and we'll see how he closes out the year. But obviously, a lot going on in the system, transactions wise, fallout from the trade deadline, right? Because you also have to make room not only for draftees, but you just acquired 2 guys from the Padres and 2 guys from the Astros. What?
Did you know Greenville got no hit tonight?
Yeah, Greenville got no hit.
I didn't realize that, because I went to look to see how he did tonight, and it's like, oh, he didn't get in a hit. And then I was like, oh, wait a second.
Neither did any of his teammates. Yeah, not great, Bob.
Yeah, no. I mean, that team has had their struggles this year, unfortunately. But
and they've sent guys up, to Portland, and this is what happens as guys.
I mean, hopefully they can finish strong. It's a pretty good looking lineup now. So
yeah, well, because I think actually, so I forgot one thing that's happened since the last episode is the promotion of Marcelo Meyer and Blaze Jordan to Greenville finally, which that tweet blew up. But speaking of tweets that blew up, but yeah,
you broke it. I mean, that was
right.
Yeah, we broke that story.
We broke that. It was pretty great. It's not surprising. I think
it was time. We kind of have speculated that was going to happen sometime soon.
Yeah, and I think honestly it might have happened a bit. I mean, part of what we heard is it was waiting for the fallout from the trade deadline. But I also I buy that and I don't, because it's like Greenville added 2 guys and yet they still promoted him. So it's like, what does the trade deadline have to do with it? Like, what did you think you might add 4 guys in Greenville? Like, I mean, they still promoted the both
Maybe
of them. I
though,
shouldn't
like
even
if
say
they had
half, it's
traded
both of them.
JD and a few other guys, maybe they did have to add 4
Maybe,
guys there. So.
maybe that's true. And when you listen to Heim Bloom, and I'll throw a shout out to Inside the Monster, where they had a good interview with Heim Bloom after the trade deadline, and I think it sounded like, I think they thought they were going to move more guys, and they just their price didn't get met.
I think, well, if you look, and I think Heim Bloom mentioned this, the prices just weren't there for rentals like they have been in the past.
Yep.
Clearly with Vasquez, they thought they were getting pretty good value. And as I think I tweeted at the time, like talking to scouts,
I think they were.
They all did say it was like good. That's about as much as you can expect for someone like him.
Yep.
But with JD and Eovaldi, they had higher price tags, and I think they were trying to kind of hoping someone would do like the stupid thing the Mets did last year when they traded, Pete Crow Armstrong for 6 months of Javier, or 3 months of Javier Baez. Like, right. That type of trade was what they were looking for, and no one was willing. You weren't getting a top 10 to 15 prospect for a rental these days. I mean, maybe you get a top 10, like one lower end top 10 guy, but all the top prospects traded at the deadline went for were non-rentals. Like if you look,
Soto, etc.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up Fangraphs. Like they did like a trade deadline. I was looking at it earlier today, like a ranking the players traded at the trade deadline, like the prospects.
Yep.
And I wanted to look and see where the what's it called, like the first pure rental person was, and I believe it was in like the late. Here it is. So here's how they ranked it. They had Noelvi Marti 1, which was Luis Castillo, which was he's under team control. Abrams 2, not Soto, not controlled. Waldachuk 3, Montas, same thing, team control. Hassel 4, Soto, same thing. Logan O'Hoppe 5, Brandon Marsh, team control. Medina 6, Montas, team control. Find the first pure rental, you have to get down to, is Joey Gallo a free agent after this year?
I don't know. I mean, he was he was almost just a dump.
No, I know, but they got their 10th ranked prospect for him. Yeah, Joey Gallo's a free agent in 2023, so I guess he would be the first one, and that was the 10th ranked prospect. Yeah, on their list. Yeah, and then if you go beyond that, you have to go down to the 14 range, which is the Benintendi deal. So you're not you're getting, the highest rank they have is a 45. Most of them are 40 pluses after that. So the price wasn't there for rentals. And I think that's kind of what the Red Sox calculus was based on what Chaim talked about was, if we want a lot, and if we don't get it, we're going to go for the playoffs.
Right. Right. So at any rate, Blaze Jordan, Marcelo Meyer now up in Greenville. Interesting lineup to go see if you can go see them. In the meantime,
definitely, it definitely would be a good lineup to see at some point in the next couple of weeks, perhaps
2 weeks from 2 weeks, just
maybe the next homestand or something. I don't know. We'll see.
That'd be cool, in theory. By the way, thanks for your support on patreon.com/SoxProspects. Anyway, the other really transaction issues. I mean, there's some guys that moved up and down. The big thing to me, Ian, is the list of guys who got released, because it's almost like
it was like a throwback list.
It was like a who's who of guys that used to be in our top 20, like three former
top 20. I would say top 30.
3 former top 20 prospects,
but they were like back of the top 20.
Yeah, but they were top 20.
Yeah, but the system was bad when these guys were in the top 20.
They were top 20.
The system was bad at the time. I
don't disagree. No, I mean, that's fair. Well, I mean, let's start with the first in time. I mean, Anthony Flores was a top 10 guy.
Yeah, that was okay. Well, I can. That one's easily explainable because
we don't need to explain.
Awesome. Yeah,
I'm not saying we were because here's the other thing, right? Is rankings are a snapshot in time.
These get course corrected quickly. It's like at the given time, these guys can look good and scouts can like them, but in 6 months that can change. In a year, it can change.
And this is why, one of the things we'll certainly talk about is Miguel Blaze's grades in the latest update, because we had several emails about it.
Yeah.
This is why when a guy is in the FCL and we're really high on him, he's still got like a 2 or a 3 floor.
Yeah, Anthony Flores is a good example. Yeah,
I know
scouts who put for like everyday regular upside on him, and he never made it out of high A. I guess. No. Well, did he get it to double A in like a fake call up to fill a rostered? So that's the thing with guys that young. There's a ton of risk, and they can burn out, but.
I mean, Flores, the athleticism disappeared.
He was just
That
one
never
off
broke.
season. He was gone. He went from being like an above average athlete to a 30 athlete in like
Yeah.
literally one off season. It was one of the weirder like developmental things I've seen
Yeah.
where he went home, had the off season, came back, had put on some like muscle / weight, lost his bat speed and lost his foot speed. And that just, that was the end of it right there. Really.
It's not like it's Sean Kemp where he got out of shape. It's just the body changed. And that's what happens with young guys.
He just physically matured. He turned in from like an 18-year-old to a 19-year-old. And yeah.
Right. So he was released on the 4th, along with right-hander Alexander Montero, who was more of a like back of the top 60 like sleeper type. I think he was top 40.
He had good stuff in Lowell like many moons ago. And then he had like 2 shoulder injuries and an arm injury and just
he like disappeared for 2 seasons.
He was basically hurt. Yeah, I was at the game when he first got hurt in Lowell. He like threw a pitch and just walked off the mound. It was like, oh, that's bad. I'll see you in a year. And that's kind of what happened.
Right. I guess he doesn't really count as a prospect, but of course, Jackie Bradley, former number 1 prospect.
But yeah, can we discuss that for a second? Because
it was a little weird.
I think he asked for his release.
I'm surprised that hasn't been like it hasn't.
That would be my guess. Like it's the only thing that makes sense to me because they just straight up like he just got released after they basically were like, yeah, he's not going to play that much anymore. He's going to be a bench outfielder.
Yeah.
And they definitely could use like a defensive first left-handed hit or preferably right-handed hitting, but they could have used like a defense first bench outfielder, especially given the struggles of Jarren Duran.
Right.
But I wonder if he was just like, I would prefer to go to a team, in contention or, not in contention necessarily, but like a team, higher up in the standings and be a bench role there than being a bench role in the Red Sox.
Yeah. He wound up in Toronto, which is
exactly
awkward.
that, but also exactly that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I like Jackie Bradley. We're going to miss him, but it just didn't work out in a way that maybe was a bit predictable. Coming into the year, and we'll do a postmortem on that probably this offseason. This just the planning for this season and how the team went into the year. But happy trails to him. Good luck to him in Toronto. Also getting released were 2 guys from. It was kind of crazy the way this worked out. I don't know, Ian, if you saw. I don't know if it was Joe McDonald that wrote this up, but the Worcester Red Sox, they had a no-hitter on, I think, the 4th. And then after the game, learned that Grant Williams and Roldani Baldwin were getting released. Like the night they threw a combined no-hitter. It was Waka, I think Politi and Shugart.
Correct. Yeah. Devlin Granberg made a diving catch to save the no-hitter at the end.
For the last out. Very dramatic. Very dramatic. And I guess after the game, they learned that Williams and Baldwin were getting released. Baldwin, a guy that's been around, he might be former top 20. I can't remember. It wouldn't surprise me if you told me he wound up in the top 20, but Baldwin signed in November of 2013. So he's been around for a hot
I was about
minute.
to guess. Yeah, I was going to guess like 2014 or 2013.
Yeah, his debut was 2014 in the DSL.
He's been around forever.
So he has, yeah. Baldwin spent most of his time this year, honestly, as the bullpen catcher in Worcester and the taxi squad catcher on road trips for the Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
And Grant Williams was both the power forward and shortstop. He was kidding. 2018 10th round draft pick, $2,500 signing bonus.
He did a great job. Very serviceable minor league depth player. Got all the way to AAA. Like, I think his max number of ABs in a year was like 300 or something, 350. But he
played a lot last year, actually.
Yeah, no, he was good last year. He had he's got contact skills. There was no power. Like, good defender though. Yeah, he was just like the prototypical like minor league depth player. Yep,
exactly. So happy trails to Grant Williams and Roldani Baldwin. And then the latest releases the past couple of days. First yesterday was Brandon Howlett, third baseman who just never got on track this year. And he's had a couple bad years. Last year he had his numbers last year are good.
Last year
his numbers last year.
His numbers were good, but the strikeout rate was always an issue. That was
2019 was the bad year in Greenville, and then he got like the pandemic year happened, and then he went up to high A Greenville last year and hit pretty well. And this year went to Portland and he was below the Mendoza line all year. Sub 500 OPS in Portland and wound up getting demoted to Greenville, which is never a good sign. And just even there didn't get back on track. OBP was pretty high because he was walking a ton, but when you're walking a ton and striking out a ton, that's generally not a good thing because it means to me that you're just not confident up there and you're looking at a lot of pitches because you're not confident you're going to be able to do anything with what you see. So happy trails to Brandon Howlett. And then today, the Portland Sea Dogs released right-hander Yohan Martinez. I guess it's the Red Sox released the guy, but Yohan Martinez, 2016 international signing, which I could have sworn he would have been around a lot longer than that. $5,000 signing, Ian. So even to get a AA guy for $5K is pretty impressive. But a guy who was ranked as high as 20th in the system when there were reports that he was touching 100 and just never stuck up there, never stayed there.
Nope.
Very straight fastball.
No consistency. Yeah, no. Straight fastball. Yeah.
I remember seeing him in Salem and he was pitching backwards, like he was pitching off of his slider and mixing in the fastball, which is a weird thing for a guy who was sitting like 94, 95 at the time. So happy trails to him. So a group of guys, and I guess you were talking before the show that I should explain this. The reason this happens is there's a thing called the domestic reserve list. And the domestic reserve list is comprised of every player assigned to one of the affiliates who is either active on the regular injured list or on like the developmental list, things like that. So it excludes guys who are either rehabbing or who are on like the long-term IL, like the 60-day IL. That's capped at 180 players between the Florida Complex League and the 4 affiliates, which sounds like a lot for 5 teams, but it really isn't when you start factoring in, guys on the IL, the fact that
well, that's what we were talking about too, how like it's kind of crazy that a team can run 2 FCL teams or 2 like complex level teams. The math is just really hard with injuries.
Tough. It's really tough. So basically with the new draftees coming in, I don't think you have to assign a draftee to a affiliate. And if you don't, they don't count against the reserve list. So that's one way you can kind of just stash guys. Like last year when Elmer Rodriguez Cruz never debuted and when Luis Guerrero never debuted, they didn't count towards the reserve list. I
wouldn't be surprised if several of the pitchers that signed, like Hayden Mullins isn't going to ever get added to that because he's obviously injured right now. Like he's like some of those pitchers, I bet like maybe we don't see Noah Dean or something. Like I don't know.
No, I think Dean and Rogers we'll see. And in fact, it wouldn't surprise me if we saw them in Salem, frankly.
Maybe, yeah. But like
if you look at what they did with like Wyatt Olds last year.
Some of the later round pitchers though we don't see. I don't know.
Like the day 2 guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what they do with that. But the thing is, the Red Sox right now, I have them at 179, I think. And keep in mind that they're going to have like 4 guys coming off the IL in the next week and a half in the majors, which is then going to push someone down to AAA. Yep. Maybe it's like Bayo comes off the IL and immediately gets optioned, but like that's still a guy going to AAA.
He's making a rehab start. I think this week, or they said he was going to make a rehab start in Portland this weekend.
Right. And meanwhile, Waka's down. Kike Hernandez and Tyler Danish just got to put on rehab assignments. So all 3 of those guys all 4 of those guys probably aren't long for the IL, which is going to push 4 more guys down. I'm sorry. They're at 179 if you count the 11 draftees who haven't been assigned yet. Which I can't remember if that number counts Sterling Sharp, who they signed, and Yuris Familia, who they signed.
Yeah, I was going to say they signed a couple of those guys.
And those are guys who got cut loose for the same reasons, right? Like those are guys who got cut loose from other teams because they were running out of room on the reserve list.
Yeah.
So, it's a calculus of like, all right, would we rather have Familia or would we rather have Yohan Martinez? I get saying you would prefer to have Sterling Sharp or Yuris Familia.
Familia has a better chance of helping the major league team, even if there's a small chance of that, than like Yohan Martinez ever did.
So, yeah.
I would say the only other transaction probably should mention is that the first pick draftee from this year that matriculated to Salem was 4th round pick Chase I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Meadroth.
But he made it up to Salem.
He's the first draft pick. Very
of the
specific
Red Sox.
wording. Very specific of the Red Sox draft pick.
Yeah, because they also
Matt Donlin was there first, the undrafted.
Oh, was he? Yeah, yep. I didn't know that.
He went straight there. I don't
But
think he
yeah,
even
no,
played the
he
FCL.
also I saw that Meadroth homered in his first at bat, which was kind of
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
because he's not not known as a power guy. And I think joining him there is actually someone we'll probably
Oh,
talk about
yeah.
a little
John
later.
Frank.
Yeah, who
Just talk about him now. John Frank
yeah,
Salazar.
he's just he was someone that scouts who've seen the FCL liked. There's some good contact skills there. Doesn't strike out a lot, walks a decent amount. Power is still developing, but he's kind of like been a fan favorite in my discussions with people who've seen the FCL. So it was good to see him be kind of the first guy to get promoted. And it made sense that he was the one to go up when you look at, they want to play Luis Ravello. They like Liendo, and they had to add another middle infielder in Mikey Romero, and also Cutter Coffee, I guess, is playing some shortstop too. He plays shortstop today. So,
Well, they're both. Yeah. I mean,
so they had too many middle infielders basically.
yeah. Well, I mean, and the thing is Salazar wasn't even playing shortstop because they've got Ravello playing shortstop every day. And now Romero and Coffee
He's playing
play
second base, wasn't he?
He was switching between second and third.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because then in Salem, like, yes, they lose Marcelo Meyer, but they've got two other shortstops in Edinson Paulino and Brian or Bonasi.
Right. So they just needed a third guy to fill in that rotation.
So, yeah, I mean, look, Salazar is probably going to play third base and nothing but third base. I mean, maybe he'll play some second too because they've been moving Paulino around. So I could see Salazar at second, Bonasi at short, Paulino at third lineup, right? But
yep.
They can move it around a few different ways. They've got a lot of guys in that lineup. Tyler Miller plays all over the field. Carson Seamus plays second and center. Like they've got guys who are moving around.
Yeah.
I think actually one other thing that's happened since the last episode had McIlvaney gone up to Salem last time. I think actually he was up there already. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, Daniel McIlvaney had already gone up. That was the day of the trade deadline. So anyway, yeah, that's really the news. We'll get more into how guys are doing in our next episode, maybe. But we really wanted to dive in on the rankings update. We did our rankings update, I think, on like the 6th or 7th, Ian. A little bit late this month, just in part because of the trade deadline being on the 2nd. We didn't want to do an update on the 1st, and then everybody gets traded. So we did our update a few days late for that reason, as well as some personal reasons in terms of timing. And how do we want to let's just kind of work our way from the top downward, Ian, on the new rankings. And to me, kind of the one thing that you need to keep in mind, because we got a lot of questions about this on Twitter, specifically because he's the darling of the internet with Blaze Jordan. When you look at the rankings and where guys are this month as compared to last, look at how many new guys entered the rankings ahead of them. And Blaze Jordan is a great example of this. Jordan dropped, quote unquote, from 14 to 18 this month. But meanwhile, Mikey Romero, Roman Anthony, and Manuel Valdez all debuted ahead of him, and Thaddeus Ward got a bump up in that he's been throwing pretty well, and as his rehab from Tommy John progresses. We don't feel any differently about Blaze Jordan. It's just other stuff happening around him in the rankings. We actually had 9 guys debut this month between draftees and trade acquisitions, which again, like if a guy was 51 last month, if we feel exactly the same about him, he might have fallen off of the rankings, right? I'm looking at it like Miguel Ugueto was 60 last month. None of us even put him on our top 80 this month. And part of that because he still hasn't played yet. But, the number of guys that fell out was there's like the 9 guys who entered the rankings. And then there are guys who were already in the system who entered, like Marvin Alcantara in the DSL, who we got a really good report on. Hunter Dobbins, who I saw in Salem and came back with a really good report on. Those guys entered the rankings. Who else? I think there was one. Was there one more? No, I guess that's it in terms of a lot of guys had huge jumps, and we'll talk about them. But when you see that, that's 11 guys who entered the rankings. That's 11 guys who had to fall out. So this ranking update always has a lot of change. It's a fairly exciting one. It's a fun one for me to do, even if it's nerve wracking because you don't know where the hell to put the new draftees. That part of it's always tough. There's a little bit of throwing darts at the dartboard with those guys, but let's start, I guess, with the top 10. Top 4 stays the same. The big switch is Miguel Blaze from 7 to 5, Brandon Walter from 5 to 7, with Brian Mata staying at 6. We were unanimous on Blaze at 5. Do you want to talk a little bit about Blaze and why he moved up, Ian? Because you had that tweet today that kind of took off on him too.
Yeah, I actually when I was talking to people about what I was going to do for the next month and kind of just like crowdsourcing with some baseball people, there were people who wanted Blaze higher than 5. I'll just say that. Like,
I almost put him 4. I'm not gonna lie.
I talked to people who might even go higher than that. Not obviously not top 2, so he would have ended a 3, but like 5 was like, yeah, that was kind of a no brainer for us.
Yep, no brainer.
Like, I understand that the one knock I've been seeing people is the strikeout rate. Like, the way he's getting to that strikeout rate and what, like, talking to scouts, they're not worried about it. This isn't, a guy who's just going up there hacking. Like, he has an idea of what he's doing at the plate. And I think like the most encouraging thing for me is obviously his numbers are great. Like, he's hitting as an 18-year-old, he's 300, 350, 550 in the FCL. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yep.
With power and speed, but he's just showing everything. Like, on defense, him in center field, the scout feedback on him is outstanding. And I saw it in spring training too. He's a really good outfielder. So like, we're talking about a guy who plus runner, plus defender. He's got a good arm. He can hit. He's got raw power, like significant raw power. Like, it's super raw. There's a long way to go developmentally, but he's exactly what you look for in a prospect of his age. Like, if he was, and this is the comparison, is like, if he was in the draft this year, he's a first round pick. Just not even a question. And he's the same age as the draftees this year.
No question. First round pick.
He's probably a top 10 pick.
Easy.
Like, yeah, like top. So like, I think he should be in the top 100 actually right now, personally. I think that once the national like lists talk to their contacts and kind of dig more into the FCL, because it's just not a very heavily scouted region by a lot of the people, that correction will be made. But I mean, the stuff he's doing, and I mentioned in the tweet, and this was what I said was, the player generating the most buzz in the Red Sox system right now is Miguel Blaze. His batted ball data is off the charts. Multiple scouts have told me he's easily the best player in the league, the FCL, and there's true 5-tool potential. And yeah, I mean, he's just dominating down there. And what I mean by the batted ball data is stuff like his exit velos, his, the way he's hitting velocity, things like that he's putting up numbers that 18-year-olds shouldn't be doing, basically. Like, his exit velos are like better than a lot of major leaguers. Yeah. His, things like that are just super high. And it's just very exciting when you see an 18-year-old who can put it together like that with the type of bat speed and athleticism he has. And he's super projectable. He's like 6'3", 175, 180. And, obviously there's a lot of risk, which is why he's 5 and not in the top, 3 right now. But like, the upside for him is just off the charts. Like, there's a very small chance.
It's the package.
There's a very small chance, but if everything clicks, you're talking about someone who will be a top, 10 prospect in baseball in 2 years. Like, we'll find out soon. We'll find out if that actually happens, but the talent is there. It's just about, how's he going to develop physically? Because as we've talked about earlier, that's a question mark given his age. His body could change in a bad way. We don't know that, but on the path he's on, the current trajectory he's on, he is easily a top 5 prospect in the system and could even be higher. And yeah, I mean, he's just really putting it together in a way that I didn't expect him to do this quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, look, an 18-year-old in his first full season in stateside. Yeah, I get he's going to have trouble with like spin and like, off speed, etc. Like, that'll happen. Yeah. But it's like, is he missing in the zone? Is he expanding the zone like crazy? Is he doing any of those things that are just,
and it's also like, flags? How is he missing the spin? Is it because he has no idea what he's seeing and he's missing it by 10 feet? Or is he just like, he's not picking it up until late? And like, there's different levels of like hitting breaking balls or how you see it. And even though the approach is still a work in progress, he shows enough feel that scouts are confident that he'll figure that stuff out as he gets older and sees more, good breaking balls and things like that. And just the way, like, you don't have many kids his age who can easily turn on 95 plus. Like, his bat speed is just crazy. And the way he whips the bat through the zone, doesn't hit ground balls. Like, it's just hard line drives. And he also has power. Like, so yeah, he's just a very exciting player and pretty much the only person I like talking about with scouts. No, I'm just kidding. But he's someone that a lot of people want to talk about him right now because of just what he's doing and how well he's performing. And the month of August, really, he's taken off. And this was like, we were going to considering this when he was hitting like, 270. Yeah. I think in August he's hitting like 500. He struck out like twice the entire month. Like that was one of the reasons we weren't worried about the strikeouts. Like there's different ways, as I said, to get to that strikeouts, and his is not like the concerning, oh wow, there's a lot of swing and miss in his game. It's the like, you know what, he's an 18-year-old. Like it's going to happen.
I've been getting a lot. I mean, we've got emails about this, but we've been getting it on Twitter too. A lot of his Blaze going to get to Salem. It wouldn't surprise me. People say, when is he going to go to Salem? Like, he could be in Salem tomorrow.
My guess is he just goes after the FCL season ends, because I didn't realize this. The FCL season ends super early. It ends the 23rd of August.
Yeah.
And I don't think there are playoffs.
Weeks.
So that's 2 weeks. So they might as well just let him ride that out and then push him up for the last couple weeks of the season in Salem, because Salem goes until mid-September. So he can go up and get, 3 weeks of games in or so there. That would be my guess, that they do that.
I mean, at this point, given the fact they didn't give him the move up, with the Marcelo Meyer promotion, it says that that's probably the plan to me. Like, I could have seen him going up because they've got room in the outfield. Like, look, I like getting Carson Seamus at bats in the outfield, but there's like no one in that Salem outfit who's blocking Blaze. Like, there's no one who he's even going to be sharing center field reps with or anything.
Yeah, no,
like,
if they were like, yeah, we want to do this, they could do it at any point because of the playing time. That's not a concern.
Yeah,
he's someone who goes up and plays immediately. I personally, I'm guessing like they just want to, let him finish strong with the FCL, finish out with the group that he's comfortable with a lot of guys that he's played with now for 2 years.
He's been working with.
Same thing, working with. I'm sure they're working on some things behind the scenes with him, like, to do with, like, as you said, maybe it's like picking up spin, recognizing breaking ball, stuff like that. And then, yeah, I would guess we'll see him in there before the end of August.
Agreed. And I think from 10 to 20, really, the story for me, Ian, is the debuts. We've got Mikey Romero enters at 10, Roman Anthony enters at 14, and Manuel Valdez at 16, Cutter Coffee at 20, and let's even actually throw Wilyer Abreu in there at 26. I think to me, that's kind of that first tier of new guys, although maybe you throw Brooks Brannon in there entering at 33, but just a good crop of new guys to add depth to the system, even though, we talked with Jim about how there's no blue chipper in this class. I don't think there's a blue chipper from the trade class either. It's just, you're pushing, I'm trying to see who, Shane Drohan falls, quote unquote, 4 spots, but really when you adjust for the guys entering ahead of him, he's up 1, right? So he goes from 28 to 32, even though he kind of moved up. Ronaldo Hernandez is down from 36 to 39, but he's really like up 3. Christian Koss, here we go. Here's the one. Christian Koss dropping from 30 to 40. That's better depth, right? I mean, that's just solid, better depth. Any thoughts on where? I know we had a lot of discussion on where Roman Anthony should go. We were all more or less in the same range on where Romero should go. We all wound up more or less in the same range on Valdez, on Coffee. Even on Abreu, we were pretty close. The place where one of these guys we were really apart most on relative to where he was ranked was Anthony.
Well, Brandon also.
Well, Brandon, but I'm saying like relative to where they are, right? Because we were, the high on Brandon was 32, the low was 39, but he's at 33.
Yeah.
So you've got a what is that, an 8 spot difference? Oh, no. Brandon, 8 spot difference on Brandon. There was a 9 spot difference between the high and low on Anthony, who's at 14, where those spots mean more, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say it. I was the lowest on both those guys, and the reason is that profile of player is someone who I think it's very hit or miss, no pun intended. And we've seen it fail. We've seen it succeed. And I just want them to go out and prove it before I'm comfortable, like pushing them more aggressively. Just takes me back to Nick Decker, for example, is a good example to me of someone, who I think had a similar profile, power guys coming out of high school, pretty physically maxed out. And yeah, they just, he's really struggled this year. And so just with Brandon and Anthony's obviously different. Anthony's got projection and he's got some speed, but Brandon is kind of like that. He's pretty maxed out physically as a catcher. And so I just want to see those guys prove it before I'm, pushing them ahead of guys that I've seen and I feel comfortable in my valuations of. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and to me that it's that, if you could rank, where do you think the tier is, Ian? The tier that's like probably 14 through gosh, 25-ish, maybe almost any. I don't know.
No, I would say like 13.
There's definitely more
I think it's
tiering now.
13 to like 17 and then like 18 to whatever. But it's also different. Like in my rankings, I think the tiers are like I have the tiers in my ranking. When I think it out, I put them in tiers first and then like rank them from there. Whereas like, so my tier list would be different than the consensus
I like that.
one.
Maybe for my season end, I'll try that.
It just makes the process a lot easier to me when I think of like, oh, I like these bucket of guys similar, and then within that, it makes it a lot easier to rank 5, to break down 5 or 6 names versus trying to guess with 20 or 30.
Sure. Moving, I guess next, guys who made big jumps. Ian, there's a couple in the top 30. The first one is Luis Perales jumping from 52 to 24, which is a pretty big one. And to me, I was the low man on him. You were the high man on him. And I completely get why you're the high man. Like I 100% get where you're coming from. You've got him at 21. I've got him at 30. The big jump, first of all, is that like he's pitching, right? Which he hadn't done yet. He's taken, I think, like 6 or 7 turns in the rotation now, which is, if it's 7, it's 8 turns in the rotation. You can just say it.
He's throwing. Oh, sorry, I was muted. It's because I was typing something. I didn't want to. He's thrown 7-3. I was talking about this with someone earlier. That's why I know he's thrown 7 3-inning stints and 1 1-inning stint.
Right, but I'm saying in a row, like without a big break.
I don't know about the row.
Yeah, because he had. Well, no, I mean, the reason I say that is like he started the season late, had 1 1-inning outing, and then missed another like 10 days.
No, that's not true. He had a 3-inning outing, missed 2 weeks, 1-inning outing, missed 10 days. That he came back.
That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like 6 in a row then.
He's had 6 straight. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in that time, he's 18 innings, 5 hits, 6 walks, 26 strikeouts. Opponents are hitting 086, 185, 121 off him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2 doubles. That's it.
He's a guy who should probably wind up in Salem, but the thing is, he's also only throwing 3-inning outings right now.
Yeah. And
the thing that concerns me is that it's the health.
I mean, his stuff is just disgusting, though, I guess. Like,
sure.
He's like 96 to 98 with
on stuff alone, ignoring injury risk and history.
Yeah, he would be ahead of Winkleman Gonzalez.
He'd be top 10.
Probably, yeah.
Probably.
Just on stuff alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think of what Winkleman Gonzalez the jump Winkleman Gonzalez made last year, Perales' stuff is better. The problem is he has no track.
He's thrown 3 innings. Well, no, this is the stuff he's throwing like similar to what Winkleman was last year. That's not what he's showing this year, which is why we've moved him down again. Because I guess he dropped 7 spots. Winkleman this month dropped 3, accounting for people who jumped ahead of him. Right. Yeah. But so his stuff is just not the same it was. Yeah. And that's the concern and why we've dropped him a little bit. But
and here's the thing, right? Is Winkleman is now throwing 5-inning outings, and the stuff is dramatically different in inning 3.
Yeah, he's like 91 to 94 by the end of his outing versus last year when I saw him, he was like 96 to 95 to 97. Like, yeah,
and I mean, it's like I've noticed it. Others have noticed it. Like I remember our message board for our forum poster, Adam, who I've met at Fredericksburg games, went to a Fredericksburg game and saw the same thing. Like, this is not something, this is something you can tell. You just look at the scoreboard. So he falls, but it's like, I would take Perales over him probably, but you also have to account when you're making these rankings for that injury risk. Like Winkleman Gonzalez, even if he's a reliever, I'm more convinced that Winkleman Gonzalez will stay healthy than Perales, who signed in 2019 and has thrown 10 career games.
Yeah, I mean, not
granted, part of that's the pandemic, but still, like, last year he pitched one game,
and this year he's thrown 20. He's thrown 24 career innings.
Right. So I need him to stay on the field before I'm comfortable moving him up very much more. But like I said, I completely get why you have him where you do. That's the
I had him higher initially and dropped him down to where I was just because there is risk, but it's just, he's,
you have to account for it.
It's just the teenage pitching prospects. It's just a very low chance of turning out. It's a very volatile group, I'll say.
It is. Another big jumper, Ian, was Elmer Rodriguez Cruz jumping up from 41 to 34, which doesn't sound like a lot, but he had one, two, three, four, like 6 guys jump in ahead of him. So it's really like a jump of 13 when you account for all of the new guys. Just again, pitching very well, in the FCL, showing interesting stuff, starting to make his climb. Here comes the king of limbs.
Yeah, he is super long. I watched some video of him pitching, and wow, it's long limbs. He's like 6'4", 6'5", 170 probably. It's hard. He's a tough one to project right now just because how much physical development he has to go. And but yeah, I mean, his stuff's good. He's into the mid 90s already with fastball, good breaking ball. Changeup is a work in progress, but there's a lot of tools to work with there. And he's someone I think could probably end the season in the top 30 with a couple good reports. And if we're able to see him, hopefully, if he gets up to Salem, maybe. There's a lot of interesting stuff there, but it still is so far away. And as I said, there's so much volatility with that group that it's harder with him because he's more projection based, where Paralysis, you at least you're already seeing the now stuff that's really impressive, and there's still more to go on top of it. Whereas Elmer's kind of like a notch below that with what he is doing presently, but there is still a lot of projection to go there.
The next big jumper was a guy who debuted in the rankings at number 36 and Hunter Dobbins. I caught him pitching for Salem out in Delmarva. And to me, having now seen most of Salem's rotation, part of that jump is just, I don't know how far I have him behind Wickelman Gonzalez, honestly. And that part of that is Gonzalez coming down to him. But it's interesting stuff. I mean, he was, in the first inning, anywhere from 91 to 96. And he was still touching 96 at the end of his outing in the fourth inning. He was more like 91 to 94, touching 96 is how I would describe it. Athletic, moves pretty well, but it's definitely a reliever delivery. He falls off to first base. He's, there's a lot of effort. High 3/4 arm slot. Fastball shows some natural cut. He hides the ball well behind a little bit too. His curveball, his best secondary pitch, 12 to 6-ish with big break. Sat something like 74 to 70. I'd call it more 76 to 78. A couple that are 75, 74. One that I had as 80. That might have just been the radar gun picking something up weird. But he really has confidence in it. Potential above average pitch, I think. Not there right now, but he has a lot of confidence in it. Throws it in any count. Also showed a slider and a changeup primarily ahead of the slider. I think he threw one. That was just kind of a show me pitch, but changeup showed a little bit of drop, sat like 83 to 85, which good separation from the fastball. Like I said, some of them showed a little bit of drop, some didn't, but he's working on that pitch. I like the package. It's probably a reliever, but it's a guy that I could absolutely see pitching in the majors. So that's why he made that big jump. He just, got healthy, got out there, and we liked what we saw. So we pushed him up.
But he's like in that group with the AAA relievers and the like lower minors, interesting arms. Which I think, maybe it's a little like that's kind of like I don't see him moving up much more.
Correct.
And the reasoning for me is, as you said, like there's a lot of reliever risk, and it's also he's 23 in low A. Like, he comparing him to Wickelman, like I think Wilkelman's 4 years younger than him. Like that's a big deal to me. And so that's why I don't think they're that close, kind of like what you were saying. There's a pretty big gap between them for me still. But
there's a tier of pitchers, Ian, from like 30 to 41. That's Frank Herman, Shane Drohan, Elmer Rodriguez.
It's what I was just describing.
I'm saying who the names are. Zach Kelly, Hunter Dobbins, Jedickson Paez, who's up 9 this month, even though it's really only 40 to 37. Edward Bizardo at 38, Tyler Uberstein at 41. I think that's the tier you're describing to me. And all those guys kind of fit that, like, this is where they should be.
Well, I think you can extend it to more Angel Bastardo and Ryan Fernandez.
Oh, yeah. Bastardo at 42, certainly. Fernandez feels a little different to me as a high minors relief only. Oh, I guess that's
that's why that's what Zach Kelly is too. It's high minors relievers and low minor. Yeah.
Yep. No, that's fair. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So he Ryan Fernandez kind of bottoming out that list. I think makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it's an interesting group, but again, Most of them, I would say, limited mobility. Rodriguez Cruz maybe a little separate. I could see him maybe moving up potentially.
Yeah, no, I think Rodriguez, Cruz, and Paez have the best chance
And
of moving up
Paez,
from that group. The other
and
ones are
especially if
kind of
Paez added velocity.
yeah. The other guys kind of like are where they are. Like
Yep.
I don't think Frank German's going to move any higher for me. Like same thing with Zach Kelly and Bizzardo. Like they kind of are what they are. And that's why I was saying with Dobbins, like, especially I haven't seen him, but especially if you're saying there's significant reliever risk with the delivery, then he's not going to move up very much from there for me.
Speaking of relievers, why don't you go ahead and talk about Fernandez, who debuts at 43?
Yeah, his stuff is just completely different this year. He's he was putting up crazy good numbers kind of under the radar. And I think it was Alex Spear just briefly mentioned in one of his notes pieces that Fernandez was up to like 97 and so, or 99, excuse me. So I went out and checked, and that was 100% right. He's sitting 96 to 98 now. He's touched 99, I think, like once or twice. So it was only a handful of times, but still, he's touched it. And he's missing a ton of bats with it. And then he also has this cutter, which he didn't used to throw, that has just like crazy high spin rate for a cutter and just really good pitch characteristics that teams look for in the low 90s. And he's also throwing a slider. He's kind of scrapped his curveball and change up. So it's just it's a pure relief profile, but it's like MLB reliever quality stuff. So that's super interesting, and why he got pushed up pretty high. Obviously there's risk given he's, guys who have that type of a significant velo jump, like he was 92 to 95 last year.
Yep.
There's definitely injury risk, and he of course is on the DL right now.
But IL. Yep.
Yeah, IL, but we'll see. He's just an interesting guy, and another guy that we're gonna have to put in, the Rule 5 conversation for this coming off season.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, with all those relievers, the Herman, Bizzardo, Kelly, if they're not on the 40-man soon, are they going to protect them this offseason? They added 2 guys they need to add in Valdez and Abreu. It'll be interesting to see what they do with those reliever types. And actually, speaking of a guy who is Rule 5 eligible this offseason, the biggest drop in the rankings was from 25 to 54 for Ryan Fitzgerald, which adjusts to a 22 spot drop. What do you want to say about that one? I mean, he obviously has really struggled at the plate. He's had almost like a tale of 3 seasons where, like, there's his first series where he tears the cover off the ball. There's a period of about a month and a half where he hits pretty well. And he really hadn't hit since early July, I think, maybe even June. Just kind of fell. And you just look between that, the age, the fact that he still hasn't gotten a shot in the majors yet. I don't think he's going to get protected.
I don't think there's any chance he's getting protected.
Maybe someone pops him to get a look in camp, but I would bet on him coming back.
Maybe I don't think he's someone who I think he kind of missed his window. There was a chance where he was, I would think in consideration for an MLB call up, but that time passed, and I just think he's regressed at the plate as the season has gone on. Yeah. And just given when you combine that with his age, it's just he belongs down in that range with like the Devlin Granberg types of the world, solid or guys who maybe get like a cup of coffee as an emergency up and down guy.
Yeah, there's a group of guys
where he should be, like Hamilton, Granberg, Ryan Fitzgerald, like
the 2 new guys in high A
they got, and then like the AJ Politi like reliever types who I think are in the same boat. Who they probably get up to the big leagues, but maybe I'm not sure they stay there.
Exactly. Yeah. Couple other debuts worth noting. Marvin Alcantara at 47. You want to say anything about him, Ian? DSL second baseman who's been playing a little bit of shortstop when he can, but middle. Yeah,
just talking to some contacts that he was one of the person who really stood out when seeing the Red Sox 2 DSL teams. And
has hit all year.
Yeah. And he's obviously the performance has been good. I think Ben Badler actually identified him early in the season as someone to watch. I think actually in the offseason as someone to, an interesting name down there, and he's performed well, and just the feedback has been solid. So he got a decent little bump up with the other, big bonus guy in Frelia and Encarnacion, who's been, okay. He's been hit or swing a little bit too much of swing and miss, but
also missed some time with injuries.
Yeah, just they're kind of like the top couple of the international guys who are down in DSL still.
Yeah, talking about groupings, 44 to 47 is Eduardo Lopez, John Frank Salazar, Freely Encarnacion, and Marvin Alcantara, and that's just kind of the we'll see if it works type group of IFAs. The other guy who debuts down in that range, Noah Dean at 48, the 5th round pick. That one really felt to me like a dart throw. We'll see how it looks in the rotation. Reliever in college, they're going to move him into starting. We'll see how that goes. May not move much now. Won't be till next year when we see what it looks like. But that's just kind of a hedge play to me. I don't know if you think there's anything else to add there.
No, I mean, yeah, as you said, like there's obviously reliever risk, but the raw stuff is interesting. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Anyone else you want to mention, Ian? Big jumps, debuts, or anything? Corey Rozier and Max Ferguson debut at 56 and 57. The two guys the Red Sox got.
I mean, we should probably talk about Emmanuel Valdez since we didn't talk about his ranking at all when we were up at the top.
Oh, Valdez. Yeah. So Valdez enters at 16.
Yeah. It seems right. Like
good bat.
Yeah. I mean, the
hit defense well since they got him.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just the defense is, I mean, I haven't talked to a single person who knows what position he can play. But
well, yeah, it's interesting that they've already played him in left field once in Worcester.
Yeah, that might be the ultimate place. But I mean, he's showing power. Like he's got a couple of home runs already. He's walking. Like I don't really care. Mm-hmm. He's hitting like 175 or something, like whatever. But yeah, no, he's an interesting guy, and I think that that kind of makes sense as a hedge. It's like because you're talking about a 16, that's like a 40. Like sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 3 to 5, 4 projection with a 3 to 5 range. Sounds right. Again, it's a he'll hit, but the ceiling
it'd be tough for him to get to a 6 with that defense, like especially if the defense is going to be a negative throughout his career.
Exactly. And Wilyer Abreu, we didn't really talk about either, debuting at 26. Again, the defense. The thing is, I feel like every time we hear like, oh, the defense gives him a pretty good major league floor, it's like, well, we said that about Jason Rosario, and at this point, it doesn't look like I'd be surprised if he has any significant time in the majors.
Yeah, I think the difference between Rosario and Abreu is Abreu has like really high exit velos and can actually impact the baseball, whereas Rosario was like he struggled to do that.
Right.
He was hitting for like an empty batting average. So Abreu's an interesting guy, but it's just it's still pretty raw. There's a lot of swing and miss, and as you said, he's Rule 5 eligible, so he's kind of in a weird position this coming off season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. Anybody else that I missed? Stat boy. Or should we move on to emails? I know we have some emails about the rankings. So if you think of anything while we're doing emails, let me know. But again, podcast@soxprospects.com is the email address to send emails to this podcast show. And y'all are doing that in spades right now. So again, a gentle, friendly request that if you write out your email and it is more than like a couple paragraphs, consider cutting it down. Our first email comes from Sean, and just to pair, he threw a TLDR at the end, so I'm just going to read that. His TLDR is that the Red Sox should have made all the same moves they made at the trade deadline, but made one more trade to get under the CBT without giving up guys that they would QO, that give the qualifying offer after the season. It wouldn't have been a big difference in the team for this year and would put you in better position for the future with higher comp picks. Ian, I think like we said in the last episode,
there's no way to do that without
move?
There isn't a move. That's the thing is like the number. I think Alex Spears said he's heard it's
probably
between 8 to 10 million. If you look at the 40-man roster, they don't have a lot of guys making that type of salary that they can move. Like you're like to get 8 million,
you have to move 2 guys.
You had to move either Eovaldi or JD, which are QO guys. So if you're not moving them, then it's just very difficult to get to that number. Like, I don't know who, you're going to trade Matt Barnes. You're giving something to get rid of Matt Barnes.
Right.
Like you're going to trade, there's just no one
Would
else.
Barnes even be enough?
No, they would have to trade like Barnes, Kike Hernandez, and like Waka. It'd have to be like 3 different guys. Like there's just no way. There was no way to get under really without trading the QO guys.
Because remember, it's you're trading their salary for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
like if you trade Matt Barnes, you're not taking 7.25 or whatever his AAV is off the
or whatever.
If that.
Yeah.
If that. So yeah,
so it's the same thing with like they only have the only guys they have making more than 10 million are Trevor Story, who obviously wasn't going to get traded, Eovaldi, JD, Devers, Sale, and Bogarts. Like there was no way to get under without trading those two. Realistically, like obviously there was ways, but realistically there was no way. Because I feel like the thing that a lot of people are forgetting with the CBT is the Red Sox have all that dead money from David Price on there. That's taking up 20 million of it. Or
I don't know if that's still true.
I think this is the last year.
Is
Pretty
it?
sure. I mean, he's still under
Yeah, let me bring
contract
up
with the
Cots.
Dodgers, so I would guess so.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
Like
Yeah.
he's a free agent, I think, in 2023.
Payroll and tax tracker.
Yeah, he's a free agent after this year, so this is the last year of it.
Yeah. Okay. So the Red Sox have David Price's $16 million on the
Yeah.
books still.
Like, so they have like that's dead money, and you can't trade that. So like they're kind of hamstrung in the sense that they didn't have the contracts to get under without trading either Eovaldi or JD. So it kind of, like, as you said, defeats the purpose. Like, if you're going to trade them to get under, then you don't need to give them the QO. So yeah. Obviously, there are long-term benefits for getting under. Don't get me wrong, but I think that the idea that they should trade them to get under was just like, or trade others to get under was just not realistic.
Our next email comes from Mark, and he says 2 things to discuss. One, if the Red Sox want to try to compete, why trade Christian Vasquez at all? Like, I'm into the Pham and Hosmer trades. Both of them made us much better. Imagine having Vasquez in that lineup. It doesn't make sense other than what you astutely brought up. They won't QO him or he'd take it in a heartbeat. Might as well get something. The return is meager considering the negative of Plawecki being behind the plate and are at the plate and behind the dish. It doesn't make us better unless we're having Wong or Ronaldo up to split time. I think that's a lot of faith in Connor Wong or Ronaldo Hernandez. I mean, again, like we talked about the kind of rearranging the deck chair strategy. Bloom on Inside the Monster was just saying, like, you know, we had to be, they were in a weird position where they want to compete. They think they've got to run in them, but they also can't get caught holding the bag when the music stops, to kind of mix metaphors here. You know, they can't be caught with, you know, losing a guy for nothing that they could have got something for, because they really don't want to do that with what they're trying to do going forward. So they did both. And frankly, like, the Red Sox aren't the only team that both sides did this year. There were a few teams that did that. I want to say Atlanta was one of them, Ian, that like added relief arms, but like also traded guys. Like they traded relief arms. They traded Chris Martin.
They traded Will Smith. Chris Martin was the Dodgers. They traded Will Smith. Or the Cubs, maybe. The Cubs traded Chris Martin. They traded Will Smith, but then they added Raisel Iglesias.
Right.
So yeah.
So I mean, yeah, maybe that's a 1-for-1, but it's like there were a number of teams that did do that. Second question, Hosmer trade. I kind of like it low key though. It gets us better at first base immediately, defensively contact, and maybe equal in power. I was really worried that they would be forced to get a bat that would block Casas. In my opinion, this play is brilliant for now and for later. This year, you have Hosmer at first and JD at DH. 2023, Hosmer at first base, Casas DH. 2024, Casas first base, Cavadas DH. I low-key am very excited to see this. Thoughts? I'm not penciling any player below Portland into the Red Sox lineup at any point. I don't know about you, Ian.
Yeah, no, I think that's a little aggressive to be penciling in Cavadas as a DH already.
In the majors, being the point.
Yeah, and like the Hosmer trade, yeah, I mean, it was like it gave them a stability at first base is how I would describe it. He's been good since they got him, but yeah, it's a very like there's nothing that is gonna, like, if they want to trade that contract now, it's very tradable, and they probably could get something for it. Yeah,
if he rebuilds his value, they could easily get something for it.
Yeah, so like I think he's a perfect stopgap. He's a perfect stopgap. Like realistically, you weren't going to find a better minimum free agent to put at first base in the offseason. So like even when they signed Mitch Moreland a couple of years ago, that was like what, $5 million or something a year. Like,
you're not getting anybody.
Hosmer at the minimum is the perfect stopgap until they determine Casas is ready.
Mm-hmm. Like at the minimum, you're going to get. By the way, Joey Meneses. Have you seen what he's been doing in Washington?
I mean, he's on the Nationals. He's actually hitting. Yeah.
And
going back to the Vasquez thing, I just like he's been a 1-win player this year. He's on pace to be like a 1.2 win player. I think
he's a good player.
He's a good player. I think he gets overrated because he was here for so long and people were used to like the stability he brought. Like, you know, he's still a negative like WAR hitter this year, even though he's hitting like 270, 280. And like, I understand that neither Plawecki or Reese McGuire are the caliber of hitters he is, but like, it's not that much of a downgrade. Like, I don't think it's as big as, you know, people are making it out to be.
I do think it is that big of a downgrade, but completely get why they moved him.
Yeah, I don't like, he's fine. I mean, Plawecki, I guess I think it might be time to move on from him realistically, but yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I mean, look, after the comment I made about Wong and Hernandez, I wouldn't mind giving one of them some run to close
I think
the
the
year
issue is
out.
Wong's hurt. I think Wong would be. I could see
Yeah,
Wong being
that's
up
true.
if he was healthy.
That's true. All right, our next email, Ian, comes from Connor O. He says, "Good day, gentlemen. Thank you for all the hard work you do on the site and the podcast. I have a projection question. If both Nick York and Mikey Romero reach their highest possible outcomes as baseball players, sorry, reach their highest possible outcomes as baseball players, in your estimation, who would be the starting second baseman in Boston and who would be the backup/utility man? Thank you again for all your hard work." What are your thoughts, Ian?
Well, if they both reach their highest projection, you're going to trade one of them or move one to a different position. You're not going to stick them on the bench just like a utility guy. So,
correct.
Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, I mean, look, on the website we have grades for the guys, right? We've got Romero's ceiling is a 6, Nick York's ceiling is a 7. I'd probably say it's close. It's a low 7 for York. It's just the hit tool. I mean, he's shown more in the minors, such that we're comfortable throwing a 7 ceiling on him because of the hit tool. They both probably project a second baseman. Maybe there's a chance Romero stays at short. I don't know, but yeah, you're not saying who's going to be the Red Sox second baseman and who's going to be a bench player on the Red Sox. Like you said, you're moving one of them. So, thank you for the email, Connor O. Our next email comes from Peter, who he says, a couple of podcasts ago, Ian mentioned twice that he's dubious about Xander Bogaerts' chances of being a Hall of Famer. In my estimation, he's a very similar player to Derek Jeter. If you look at their stats for their first 8 to 10 full seasons and taking into account 2020 being shortened, the key stats such as WRC plus, OPS, and WAR are very close. They were both excellent hitters and team leaders. They both have good hands and limited range at shortstop. Jeter, being a sort of right-handed Wade Boggs at the plate, had the higher batting average. Bogaerts might end up with more home runs. Obviously, Bogaerts needs to keep performing for several more years, but he has a track record of pretty good health, and it's not crazy to think he can sustain a high level for 5 more years before starting to fade. What do you think? You're the one who made the comment he's responding to, Ian. I defer to you.
Yeah, I mean, like, Bogaerts is 29 right now. He's a career 32 WAR guy. Jeter was for his career 73 WAR. So Bogaerts
he's got a ways to go.
Yeah, like you're basically banking on Bogaerts being a 44 WAR guy in his 30s. I'm skeptical that's the case. Yep. That would require multiple 6 to 8 WAR seasons, because unless he's going to put up 4 and a bit WAR until he's 40. So I just think that I think he's a very good player. I think he's an excellent player. I don't know how well he's going to age. And I think we're already starting to see some of the decline on offense. He's having one of the weirdest years I've ever seen. His luck on ground balls this year is insane. And I just think it's a little concerning that the power is seemingly starting to go this year. At least it has. Obviously it's going to come back.
Yeah.
But this year he's deriving a lot of his values coming from base running and things like that, which have never been really that much of a strength since back in his 2017 was the last time. So yeah, I mean, I think he's a really good player, but he's at 150 career home runs, even taking account all those things, is he really going to get in if he ends up as a 300 home run guy? I don't know. I just think it's a little premature to be, counting a guy like him as a potential future Hall of Famer. Could he get there eventually? Sure. But I'm not going to be, I would say right now it's more unlikely than likely. And I don't think that's a crazy thing to say.
Mm-hmm. I concur. Our next email comes from Nate G, who says, first, my question is about Meyer and Blaze. I noticed that you have an 8 ceiling attached to Blaze with a 7 on Meyer. Is the difference in Blaze's power and speed that much greater than considering Myers' defensive upside? This was what I was alluding to. We've got Blaze's floor is a 2, his ceiling is an 8. More people notice Blaze getting an 8 ceiling than I didn't think anyone looked at our grades, frankly, and everyone immediately picked up on that. Why don't you talk a little bit about why we went to 8 on Blaze's ceiling, and then we can make the Meyer comparison, because I think it's a good question.
I mean, because there's a 0.01% chance he's Ronald Acuna or Julio Rodriguez, that caliber of player. he has the starter kit that those guys had.
Yeah, and when you say that, tell me if this is correct, just to make sure. We're still talking realistic ceiling here. This isn't the like any player could get way better and turn into like Mookie
there's
Betts
okay.
ceiling,
it's really it's greater
right?
than it's like it's less than 5%, but there's a greater than it's non-negligible chance that he turns into that.
That's I think that's a better way to put it because there's a 0.1% chance that Marcelo Meyer turns into an 8 because he
and
gets great better pop than we think he's going to grow into or something.
Well, I think the big difference for Blaze's ceiling is, and you mentioned Meyer's defense. Blaze is potentially could be a very, very good center fielder. Very, very good.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that Meyer's got a defensive
I don't think
advantage
the
at
defense
all.
And Blaze is going to stay up the middle too, unless he gains like 40 pounds of muscle. So, I think Blaze, his speed is he's a plus runner. And I don't think Meyer's going to stay what he is. I think we have him as like a 50, average. 55 runner. Or we have him as a 45 right now as a runner. Like he doesn't have that speed component. And I just think that the way there's the 5-tool potential with Blaze that puts him on, that has the upside of those, those generational talents that I kind of talked about. Whereas Meyer, I just feel like is a little more like, we know what we've seen this player before. It's a very, very good player. But, it's like a 60, it's that the ceiling is that like 60, 70 range, like the Corey Seager types, like maybe a little better than that. I'm just not sure if he's like Fernando Tatis or like one of those, generational players. I just don't really think the tools are that loud for Meyer.
Sure. And the second question he asks is, in a recent episode, you were dismissive of an email comment questioning the front office's direction. I don't remember being dismissive, but maybe we were. And why we should care about the farm system if the Red Sox are not going to make earnest attempts to extend those players. I think the point of the critique that was missed is that emphasizing the farm system and homegrown players loses its appeal and value, IMO, if you just lose those players in their prime anyway. Thanks for taking the time to read my email. I don't remember that. Do you remember the question he's talking about? Because I don't. By the way, I don't mean to be dismissive of any email that we get, so no one please take it that way. I mean, look, as a fan, I want to keep guys around. The thing is like, if you're going to develop a player and some other team is going to offer him like double what you think he's worth, then no, you're not going to keep him. I mean, that's part of it. You have to, like, you can't make a decision on Rafael Devers based on the fact that you developed him. You need to evaluate him the same way you would evaluate acquiring and then paying out any player his age. Same thing with Xander Bogaerts. Same thing with Mookie Betts. I'm not saying that the front office is always going to make the correct move. You can disagree, but I'm just saying.
I think we've been pretty vocal too that we want like Devers needs to be re-signed. But
that's the thing is it's just like, you want to re-sign those guys. You don't want to turn into a team that develops guys and then loses them. But like, I don't think we're saying like, you should automatically, be ready to give everyone up. But anyway, that just kind of explain a little more what we're saying here. Our next email comes from Seamus. He says, I thought about this question because of Miguel Blaze's current ceiling grade of 8. When somebody on Twitter complained about his range of 2 to 8, Chris mentioned that even if there's just a 1% chance those ranges were both present, when you assign the floor and ceiling grades to a prospect, how likely does each extreme outcome need to be to warrant the grade? Have there been any other prospects where the 8 ceiling grade has been issued or at least seriously considered? For position players, I guess it could only happen for a 5-tool guy at a premium position, but what would an 8 ceiling pitching prospect need to have? Or does the attrition rate of pitchers mean you'd never assign an 8 to a pitcher, especially not at the equivalent stage of development as Blaze? And this is actually kind of funny. He says, last thing, because of the handle SP Chris Hatfield, I initially thought Chris was a former starting pitcher for a sort who I had forgotten about. I won't tell you how many episodes I listened to expecting that background to come up in conversation before it dawned on me what SP stood for. Thanks, Seamus. Fair. I have looked at my Twitter handle and wondered how many people think that for a while. So it's kind of funny that someone mentioned that. But yeah, I mean, I think taking this in turn, the range, I think we just talked about that a little bit on where the range comes from. I can't remember who. See, the thing is we've
not put an 8 on anyone. I don't think.
I also don't know how long we've used the 2080 scale either. Is part of it. So it's like
But we have
bets,
not. I'm pretty confident saying we haven't put an 8 on anyone. Maybe
'cause, like,
Devers, but that was the only one I could think of. But I don't think
did we even use
I don't think we used it
bet on
back then.
2080
No,
at
I
that
don't think
point?
we used it back then
Because
we
it used
only
to be
used
1 to 10.
Yeah.
When was, I'm going to look this up at least while we're maybe answering other emails. When was Devers the top prospect in the system? That would have been like 15. No. When did he debut? 18?
Devers?
Yeah.
He was last top prospect in the system. Oh no, it was 2017.
2017. Okay. So let me try and find.
Yeah. He was, look at like April 6th, 27. So beginning of April 20. Wait, oh, it goes right to left. Look at July 1st, 2017. If you're going to, I'm guessing I know what you're doing. You're going to like the archive to see
archive.org. Yep.
Yeah.
So at archive.org on our July 1, 2017 top prospects list. No, we were on the 2080 scale at that point because it was Benintendi at 1 with a 7 ceiling, Devers with a 7 ceiling, Groom with a 7 ceiling.
And Devers, like, that makes sense because of the defense. Like,
defense,
and he nailed it. Like, to get to an 8, to get to an 8, you need to be
up the middle.
Like, it's very difficult if you're not like an up the middle 5-tool guy.
Agreed.
And the pitching thing is 100% right. I can't foresee us ever putting an 8 on a pitcher. It's just
it would need to be like a top couple of prospects in the game type guy who has shown all kinds of health.
It would have to be like if the Red Sox had like the equivalent of like Grayson Rodriguez or like Yuri Perez or something. And even then, I don't know if I could do it.
They'd have to be in AAA, having had multiple seasons in the minors of absolutely no health issues and and just be absolutely shoving with 2 or 3 plus pitches. Like,
if you go through like
command,
there's I don't think you're going to see a lot of people putting 8s on pitchers. No. Like that's just not
it's even ceilings.
Does. Like even if you told me in MLB right now, there's probably like 5 8 pitchers. Like there's not that many.
So it would be like DeGrom.
It's DeGrom. Like, I mean, I'm going to go look at the WAR pitchers right now, but yeah, it's like DeGrom is the easy one.
Kershaw, no. I mean, at one point Kershaw was. I don't know what to say he's now.
Not anymore. I mean, if you're going by pitching WAR, the pitching WAR leaders right now are like Sandy Alcantara, Carlos Rodon, and Kevin Gossman. I would not put an 8 on any of them.
Nope, no question.
Yeah, I genuinely think DeGrom.
I'm trying to think of who else I'd put an 8 on, and I'm probably forgetting someone really obvious.
Like maybe Shane McClanahan can get there, but like
I wouldn't put him there now.
No, that's what I'm saying. The only one is DeGrom. Like,
yeah, I think that's probably fair.
Like, yeah, especially I mean, using the WAR scale we have, which I think we might have to adjust a little bit, given with the way like WAR is calculated now. Like, no pitcher is going to get above like 5.5 WAR this year.
Yeah.
So which, I mean, on what we have is like a 7, which actually I guess maybe it is working because like the whole point is like you need to be like, to be an 8, you have to be like a unicorn.
And keep in mind, we're saying that these are guys who do this year in and year out.
Yeah, you can have one season where you're that good, but it's just very, like here's an example. On the hitting side, Aaron Judge would be an 8 this year.
Yes.
Like,
I would say he's a legit 8.
Yeah, I mean, but he like the health thing is tough, but yeah, like
that's true.
But yeah, like he's putting up, or like Ohtani probably is too, just because you have to combine the two.
Well, I mean, what we're saying as a hitter or as a pitcher, Ohtani's different because he gives you that.
Yeah, Ohtani's unique, but like Judge is probably the only, like an 80 right now. But like, yeah, it's like it's a very rare thing, and like the fact that we like putting that on Blaze was considered. There was a lot of discussion about that.
Yep. Our next question. Our next question comes from Chris. He says, "Hey guys, the Sox have so many needs this offseason. It seems impractical to fill them all with free agents. What type of trade chips do you think the org can use to acquire a position player? I'm assuming Meyer, Casas, Bayo, York, Blaze, and Rafaela are off limits. Do they have the prospects, and are they willing to trade them for a guy like Sean Murphy? Do you think they would be willing to make a big trade like that?"
I mean, Alex here said they inquired about Murphy, so.
I think they're willing. They just have to, the price has to meet what they want to pay.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like you're doing a disservice. You're not considering anyone for the right price. Like if someone,
I don't think there's a single untouchable player in the system.
But like, I would be very surprised if Meyer, Casas, and Blaze got traded.
I think that's fair.
I would
trade Bayo.
Yeah. Other than those 3, there's no one I would
trade
say,
York.
Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like those are the only 3 that I would be surprised.
And it's not that they're untradeable. It's that I don't know who's getting moved that they would move. Like it's Juan Soto.
The point is teams will ask about them, but like the Red Sox are just gonna be like, yeah, come on, like we're not doing that.
Well, because that's the thing is it's like Would the Red Sox make the Juan Soto deal? I don't think they're in a position to make the Juan Soto deal.
If the Red Sox were like a strong contender with like their core locked up, like the Padres is, yeah, you could have talked me into like the Soto deal equivalent from the Red Sox, which I think they could have done.
And that's what they're trying to get to.
They need to get to that point first where they can be like the Padres and, go out and trade all their top prospects for position player or for like, upgrades every year. Like, but they don't have that talent baseline. The reason the Padres are in that position is because, they developed Fernando Tatis. They developed, like some of the pitch. What's his name? Who's the pitcher I'm thinking of?
What's their rotation? Darvish Musgrove.
Or no, not. Sorry, they didn't develop any of those guys. Actually, now that I think
they traded for all of them. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I was thinking of someone else.
Anaya.
But I mean, Tatis is obviously the big one. He's not playing right now, but yeah. But anyway, yeah, they were trying to get.
They signed Machado.
Or like the Dodgers, I think, is the best example. They're trying to get to that point where you can develop Will Smith, Cody Bellinger, all those guys, and then go out and trade for Trey Turner, Max Scherzer, Mookie Betts, all those guys.
Yep. Our next email comes from Daniel, who says, "I love you guys."
Cronenworth was who I was thinking of. Like Jake Cronenworth. Like, yeah, that's
who's the pitcher you were thinking of.
For some reason I was thinking Musgrove was with them originally, but he of course was acquired in a trade. So yeah.
All right. Our next email comes from Daniel. He says, "I love you guys. ... But are we putting too much of an emphasis on walk rate?" And then he says in parentheses, mainly in regards to Ceddanne Rafaela. I read the email just to kind of point out, I don't think we're worried about Ceddanne Rafaela's walk rate in a bubble.
Nope.
It's the expanding the zone and making poor contact.
Yeah.
It's two different things.
It's the amount he chases and the ensuing resulting weak contact where he gets himself out a lot.
Yeah. It's got nothing to do with you need to walk a certain amount. Now you could look at a guy's low walk rate just to kind of, explain a little bit what comments we'd make. The low walk rate can be an indication of how much he is chasing if you don't have his like chase rate in front of you, right? Like a minor leaguer is going to walk a certain amount. And if he's walking at a 2% rate, it's like, okay, why is that? If he's walking at a 5% rate, why is that? Well, it's because he's chasing pitches outside the zone. He's been better about it in Portland. The walk rate has gone up a little bit, again, as a barometer of how much he is chasing. It appears he is doing better with that. It's a development point. We're not saying the guy doesn't walk, therefore he stinks. We're saying it's something he needs to work on, and it's why I'm not ready to make him like. I really like someone, on our forum talked about with Rafael as a top 100 prospect. How is he not in our top 5? It's because we disagree with Baseball America that he's a top 100 prospect. I don't think he's a
top 100 prospect.
I don't either. The defensive versatility is great. He's hitting well. He's hitting well in Double-A right now. I'm still not convinced he does that in the majors. So that's
I mean, his walk rate's like 6%. Like I was just going through like the WAR leaders, and there's there's a handful of guys who can operate with like a sub 6% walk rate in the big league level. It's a very small group. It's Trey Turner's at 5.8, Andres Jimenez is at 5.3, Nico Horner's at 4.7. They're the only 3 guys in the top 30 of WAR in baseball. Like, and if we go to the next page, like you're looking at like top 60 even. And this is obviously like, if he gets like a 2 WAR level, you're going to be extremely happy with that. And so there is obviously a pathway to do it. And a lot of it's driven by defense. And so like, could I see him turning like a Jeremy Pena like season? Sure. Like Pena's at 23.8% strikeout, 4.7% walk. He's hitting 243, 286, 417 with good defense. If you told me Rafaela did that in the big leagues, I would believe it. And like, that would be a heck of a player. That's a very good player. Yeah, and that's why we have him where he is. But like, if you look at Jeremy Pena, he was never like really a top 100 prospect until this season, like the beginning of this season when they pushed him up because it was driven by the defense and the speed. And yeah, with Rafael, like that's his pathway to be there. But it's hard with how much he is still chasing and like the approach. It's just still very raw. And if he can take a step forward with that, that's when I would be like, yes, that's a top 100 prospect.
Our next email comes from Alman, and he says, I'm just going to summarize the email. He basically is asking, would you rather for next year's bullpen, Ian, the Red Sox either A, sign Edwin Diaz or Kenley Jansen to be the closer, or B, leave Tanner Houck as the closer and sign other pieces? For him, he'd like to sign David Robertson to a 1-year deal to compete to be the closer and sign a couple more decent arms like Craig Stam and Dominic Leone. maybe Chad Green on a Paxton type structured deal. What do you think? I mean, I think it's going to depend on how the offseason's going, really.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to have like an established closer and have the ability to use Haug, Whitlock, Schreiber as multi-inning bridge guys. I think that is the best way to construct a bullpen, in my opinion, with the guys they currently have. I think that would just that would be the way to do it. Would be to have like ideally get a lockdown guy, and then but yeah. So I think that I'd like to see them add some depth to help out that back of the bullpen and push Haug into more of that middle relief role.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I am too. I mean, the thing is with those big relief contracts, sometimes they work out. Kenley Jansen this year. Sometimes they just don't, man. They're just so volatile. And I mean, if you listen again, Chaim Bloom on the Inside the Monster podcast the other day, he's talking about how like the best bullpens are guys that can turn out more than one John Schreiber, right? Who they get for almost nothing and turns into a stud. And you can obviously you can't talk about guys on other teams, but you look at like Jeffrey Springs, maybe not even a bullpen guy, but he's the guy who they had and they clearly saw something in, and he went to Tampa and now he's like a legit, maybe not starter, but he's a bulk guy.
He's on pace for like really a 2.5 WAR season or something crazy.
He's been really good this year.
Yeah. No, he's like a legit starter now. He's not just a bulk guy.
Yeah.
He's like a legit starter.
So it's just like there's a reason that they sign these guys and try and work with
that
them.
Might be one Chaim. I think that was a Chaim Bloom trade, right? Him for Ronaldo Hernandez.
Certainly. Not Ronaldo. Oh,
yes,
Ronaldo
it was
Hernandez.
Yes, Jeffrey Springs and
sending him to Tampa. It was him and
Springs and Chris Mazza for Hernandez and Nick Sogard.
Yeah,
I think they might want to have that one back.
Yeah, probably. Our next email comes from Mad Dog. He says, "Hey guys, do you see a possibility that Ryan Fitzgerald gets a look at the majors to see if he's worth using, especially considering his age and Rule 5 eligibility next year?" No. You?
We talked about it earlier. Yeah, I think it's unlikely at this point.
Next email's from Joey. He says, "Hi, Chris and Ian. Recently, you've debated the needs of the contemporary farm system. Is this the best way to describe it? 1, they have quality, meaning top 100 guys. 2, they've acquired depth, interesting wait and see guys. 3, they need, all caps, quality depth, meaning 45 plus grade guys to bridge the gap between Bayo York and the less certain Rafaela Walter crew. Let me know what you think. Thanks." I mean, so here's what I think. I mean, I think it's just like more guys who go in that sort of Bayo York Blaze range. I think that's just like,
yeah, I mean, yeah,
they've got a lot of guys who are in that like good 40s range, right? And they've got a few top 100 guys now. It's just that they're really kind of missing like the rest of the top 10, which I think is a point you've made.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah,
that's one way to describe.
Yeah, no, I would like. I think they are a little weak in the back half of the top 10. I think it's getting better, as you said. And then like I think once you get into like, there are guys that we have in like the late teens or the early 20s that I prefer to be closer to 30, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the farm system is definitely improved. It's on a good track right now. It's just like patience is required. I think that's the hard part. It's going to take some time for these guys to develop because a lot of like the top guys are in the low minors right now.
Our next question comes from David B. And he's a little bit mistaken here, but we'll clear it up. He says, "I'm pretty sure I saw that Ian was at the Greenville game for the debut of Blaze and some guy named Meyer. I was just watching the video of Blaze's at bats posted on Twitter by Chris Clegg, friend of the site. Thanks for that.
No,
Chris.
That's who was at the game.
Exactly.
Yeah, Chris works with
us. I know the tweet he's talking about though, because you always say like good night to be at the game. And you were saying it was a good night for Chris to be at the game. It threw me off at first too.
Yeah.
I know the tweet he's talking about. I could see how
Chris was there, and he's been helping us out with Greenville coverage. And he had some awesome stuff from that game on his timeline. You might want to check it out. Some notes about Blaze Jordan, his home runs, and kind of some other stuff that he was struggling with at the same time.
Getting to his question anyway, he says, "My main question is whether Blaze Jordan." Whether Blaze is intentionally staying back to be able to pull breaking balls and hit the fastball to the opposite field, or if his bat speed is too slow to pull the fastball, or if it's a slow reaction time leading to being late on certain pitches. Basically, it comes down to whether this is a question about approach or an inherent weakness in his swing. It's a good question, whether or not you were there.
That's a very good question. And it's hard to say, like, bat speed's a weird thing in that there's no like measurable thing as far that we like have access to.
I was going to say there definitely is.
Yeah, no, there is. But we like, so with Jordan, like, I think it's a combo of a little bit of like, he does have a little bit of a slow trigger, but I think he also does like the bat speed it does suffer when he's going against fastballs. I think that I don't necessarily think he's trying to hit fastballs the other way. I just think that's the way his swing is designed, or will kind of ends up being.
Works. That's the way it works. I don't know that he's trying to do it.
He's not trying to do it is a good way. Because like he's just really he's not really hit velocity that much this season at all. And that's just kind of how it is that like he can pull breaking balls because he's got power, like he can really crush them. And that's kind of the level of when his barrel is going through the zone against them, is like to pull them. He's a little out in front, like he gets the bat out ahead of them. Whereas fastballs, he's a little slower to get going, takes a little longer there. And as a result, he's more, hitting them the other way. So I don't think it's deliberate. I think it's something that they know that he needs to work on. And we'll see if he can, kind of clean things up there and be able to, get out on fastballs a little better.
And again, I think there was a specific tweet from Chris that called out the fact that Jordan was behind on every high velocity fastball he saw. It's not just something we're seeing.
No, this is something that's been going on all year. Like
yes.
He's really struggled to pull fastballs all year. If you look back at his home runs and all his hard hits, for the most part, they're all off speed pitches, or
it's either
bad fastballs
or fastballs he's hitting the opposite way.
No, or it's bad fastballs that are like 88. Like he can pull like an 80 mile per hour fastball. It's just he's not pulling like anything, 92 plus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Well, that's the last of the emails finally. So thank you all for, again, it's podcast@soxprospects.com. We want to talk about what y'all want to hear about, so send them in. So, if we like it, we'll read it on the show. And with that, we're going to wrap up. So thank you all for listening. We appreciate it. Make sure you go follow us on Twitter. I'm at SP Chris Hatfield. Ian is at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. And follow the site at Sox Prospects on Twitter and Instagram. You can support us on patreon.com/Sox Prospects. And as always, we want to shout out our $5 level Patreon supporters. That would be Deb Kendall, Andrew Wallen, Lendl Martin, Ernest Shermer, Kyle C., Tyler Wooddraw, Mr. Walsh, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Evan Kirkwood, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kennan, Ben NRI, David B., Ben Burnett, Al Mendel, Kevin Catrides, Paul Denyer, Steve Gregory, James Bailey, Andreas Goldstrand, Corey Perrick, Mark Herman, Ryan Cowan, Andrew K., Jeff Harwood, Dusty G., Michael Murphy, Bob Introne, Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Jeffrey Scruggs, Mike Kawano, Chris Bollier, Curtis Waltman, Michael Stewart, Caleb Farron, John Kane, Jason Stoneburner, Jason Parker, Mike Mignosa, Jeff Richardson, Eric Peterson, Michael Cullen, John McGee, Nicholas Lenson, Paul Manish, James P. McMahon, Jim Tuttle, and Adam Gregory. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back at your eardrums soon. We'll be back at you. If there's stuff happening, we'll talk about it here on the Sox Prospects Podcast. Thanks, y'all.